The Roman army is known for being fierce and formidable. They gained such a legacy by adopting aspects of other civilizations' cultures and strategies and integrating them into their own. Early Romans adopted a lot of Etruscan and Greek culture, as well as adopting military tactics from Carthaginians and Greeks. As times change, so does the structure and organization of the army. In turn, the armor and weapons used by the Romans have changed to efficiently destroy their foes. In the beginning, the Roman civilization based a military army on the Greek phalanx. The Greek hoplite units were only reserved for those who could afford such luxurious armor, consisting of a helmet based on the Greek hoplites, a round shield called hoplon, greaves for shin protection, and a bronze breastplate. For those who could not afford it, linothorax, which was linen armor. They would carry a long spear, named dorun, in the right hand and a shorter sword, named a scyphos. This soldier would be of the first class due to the high quality of his armor, as at the time the Romans were assessed into 5 classes, defined by the census. The lower classes would wear less equipment and have worse weapons, being in the 5th class carried no armor at all and solely used slingshots. The Greek phalanx was remarkably impressive on flat terrain. However, its one grave weakness was that it struggled to change directions, making it prone to cavalry and ambushes from its side. As such, the Romans abandoned the phalanx and adopted a new system, called the Maniple System, which was much more agile given it bare use on rough terrain. The Maniple System comprised 3 rows, the Hastati and the Velites in the first line, Principes in the middle, and Triari at the back. The Velites were lightly armored units, consisting of young agile men. They served to provoke and distract enemies. They would have several short javelins called iaculum, and a rounded shield called the palma. They wore predator skins like bear or wolf skin, which was supposedly a source of power and courage. The Hastati and the Principes both shared similar armory, which made them hard to keep apart. They would be equipped with a scutum, the famous large curved shield, a simple bronze helmet, chainmail body armor, the gladius sword, and a complement of throwing spears known as the pila. The triari was the backbone of the Maniple System. It was more well equipped with a large curved shield, a bronze helmet, sword, and a long spear to keep foes at a distance known as the hasta. They also had a bronze greave on the left leg. They were the most experienced in the army and were only used in critical moments when the other lines were defeated. An old Roman saying was made, res ad triaroros venit, which means, things have come down to the triari. The famed Flavius Camillus made some significant changes to the armament of the legion. The bronze helmets were switched to iron helmets due to the lack of adequate protection against the long swords of barbarians. He is also credited for introducing the scutum, but it's doubtful that both of these changes were introduced by Camillus alone. The Roman legion would have a slight reorganization of the army later on. The Hastati would still carry bronze breastplate, but the wealthier ones could afford to wear chainmail coats. Additionally, the Hastati would wear helmets with purple and black feathers, measuring 18 inches to appear taller and as such be more fearsome and intimidating. They carried a pylon with an iron tip that would bend on impact so that the enemies could not use it against the Romans. The other ranks were equipped in much the same manner, except they carried the long spear, the hasta, rather than the shorter pylon. The helmets were once again using bronze helmets instead of iron, but this time being much thicker. Marius's reforms of the army would contribute to a notable change from the Maniple System to the now famous cohort legion. He changed the construction of the pylon by replacing one of the iron nails with a wooden pin, so that the connection would break under impact and be impossible to return. Augustus took rule under the now newly formed Roman Empire as sole ruler. Under his reign, we are introduced to the classic legion which most imagine in their minds when hearing the word legionary. An imperial legionary would be equipped with a scutum, pilus, and gladius sword. But the meaningful change was that a legionary would wear the famous banded armor lorica segmentata and the typical Gallic armor. The helmet was superbly designed to cripple impacts of blows. The rear neck guard was visible protection from blows from behind. The legionary would also wear the caligae boots, Bronze armor would be completely wiped out of the imperial army and replaced with iron. The reason iron became cheaper was because it was found by itself, whereas bronze was an alloy of copper and tin, so it was cheaper to collect iron and use it to create the equipment. The 2nd century Legionary did not offer any substantial differences from its 1st century predecessors. A substantial change came in the 3rd century, when Roman legionaries would abandon the heavy scutum in favor of a large oval shield. They would wear a suit of chainmail or scalemail armor. The famous pilum spear was also changed by the martio barbuli, which were short lice-thrown spears, as well as long lance to hold off cavalry. The late legionary in the late 3rd and early 4th century would have a lot of visible barbaric influence thanks to Caracalla. They would bear exceptionally large, almost round shields, not resembling anything Roman. The helmet would restrict movement of the head, and the lamellar armor, a type of lorica scormata, borne by the legionaries, was fairly typical for the time. This type of legionary was still heavily armored compared to the 5th century AD, but the barbaric nature of the army was barely disguised. Armor was given up for greater speed and mobility for the mobile field army to move fast to fend off any invaders. They would use the Germanic spatha as the weapon of choice. The Western Roman Empire would eventually fall in 476 AD, and with that, the Romanian legions would rejoin the barbaric tribes or disperse into the countryside to start a new life. The evolution of the equipment in the Roman army saw many drastic changes, which made them exceptional on their battlefield. The engineering and adaptations proved why Romans were so fierce in the ancient world. But all empires eventually fall.